Good morning to everyone, and welcome to the 6th edition of Europe and Italy. What it means to be European. I am Saira, and together with my colleague Valerio, we will be moderating the day. Both Valerio and I are members of the student association Erasmus Student Network. And every year, we have the pleasure of celebrating Europe Day together with the whole Urbino student community. But this can't be possible without the support of the university, obviously. Indeed, our association has been collaborating with the university on an ongoing and fruitful basis since its inception. Moreover, this year, we have once again obtained the non-burdensome patronage for this conference from the city of Urbino. Therefore, there is no better way to start this day than with the words of our rector, Giorgio Calcagnini. But before to start this beautiful morning together, I would say that our institutions are sending bless to us, but unfortunately they can't be with us together today. Sorry, I'm very nervous, but I hope you will enjoy this conference. So, Rector Giorgio Calcagnini, the floor is yours, and I would just say thank you in advance.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I really have to say that something that I already said the last years, that this is one of the most successful programs organized by the European Union or the European Commission. I always supported the Erasmus program since probably early 90s, and when I was the delegate for the Department of Economics for the Erasmus exchanges, and I always incentivated our students to try to go abroad, even if they were a little bit shy, not afraid but shy. They were worried about the fact that going, I don't know, for example, in another country, they couldn't have found pasta or so. I remember someone who's now a colleague of mine, and he left and he brought salami with him, and he wasn't sure, and everyone was making fun of him, but then at a certain point, other Italians went to find him in his room to have a sandwich or whatever. So, but this is the most folkloristic part. But I find that still having a period abroad is very important for young people, especially the ones who are not used to live by themselves. And so, in these very formative also to live in another country, not only if you live in another town in Italy, because you have to learn how to behave in another country, and at the beginning is not so easy. And the feedback I had from, our students, the students from the economics department, were very positive. And there was especially one young lady. She was really afraid in that case to go to France, not very far from home, and I know she was one of the people who didn't want to come back to Italy. She wanted to stay longer, but at that time was not possible to stay over, I don't remember, maybe 6 months, something like that. Probably now you have the possibility to have an extension, if I'm not wrong. So for this reason, I'm very glad that there is an association of students for which purpose is to try to incentivize these kind of exchanges, and on my part, I will support you because I really find that the work you're doing is very useful for all of our students. So thank you again, and enjoy the conference.
Yes, so sorry. Thanks to the magnificent rector, and now I would like to give the floor to Professor Walter Balduini, the Erasmus delegate of the university. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to SN for organizing this annual meeting. It's nice to be back now from a very difficult situation for Erasmus, that is the pandemic. Even in another difficult situation, that is the one of the war. And speaking about to be a European citizen now is difficult because the political situation is not the best, but Erasmus, I think it's a good opportunity to really become a European student and European citizens, because it's this kind of experience for what it is my experience, not as an Erasmus student, but as a professor who who has been working in Erasmus for a long time, and seeing students changing after this kind of experiment, this kind of experience, and so they come back. The students come back more mature, more that they like much more. To go abroad, to get in touch with other people, with other culture, and so on. So, for sure, Erasmus is not the only way to become a European citizen, but it's a very good way for our new generation to be more open to other countries and to do other kind of experience and work abroad and everything. And the survey of the European Union gives this kind of message. So Erasmus is important for that. And I'm sure that in the future we can even improve this kind of program, and the number of students that use this program should increase. But one of the difficulties that I found in working in this area in these years is the fact that the differences in programs between universities, among the different universities in Europe. But we are working to improve even that. So. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work, and thank you for SN for all the work that they have done and what they will do, because it is important for our universities. It is important for all the universities, I think, to improve this kind of exchanges. That without ESN, it would be difficult. Okay. Thank you very much.
So thanks a lot, and I really appreciate your words, because it really means a lot for us. Because what it means to be European, it means to be also open, colorful, and just don't leave anything to the discounted things. Like, we have a beautiful community, a beautiful people here around us. Just take a little bit of each other and just bring it with us, and we make treasure of it. So now I pass the So now I want to give the word to Valerio that will describe you how it will work the morning. And I wish you to enjoy. And first of all, before leaving this beautiful microphone to you, I just wanted to say that also we have our deputy, one of the president from ESN Italy. It's
Morning,
Gaia.
everyone. First of all,
And she has something to tell you.
morning, everyone. First of all, thank you so much to ESN Urbino for organizing this very important conference about what it means to be a European citizen. I am Gaia Tamasi. I'm the Vice President of ESN Italy. I'm very sorry I could not be there with you guys today, but I'm still happy I can contribute in this small way. First of all, I would like to thank ESN Urbino not only for organizing this very important conference and this very important day, but also for helping and welcoming and supporting international students every single year in the city of Urbino. I would then like to thank Università degli Studi di Urbino for supporting and acknowledging the important work that ESN Urbino does in the community. It's very important for us to have the support from our institutions, and for this we are very thankful. Tomorrow is Europe Day. The reason why we're organizing this conference, it's a very, very important day for us. If there was no Europe, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing all the amazing volunteer work that we do every single day. We wouldn't be impacting the lives of thousands of international students coming to our cities and enjoying their exchange period in our cities and their mobilities abroad. One of our values is unity in diversity. This is very important, and I think this is the core of what it means to be a European citizen today. We're all different, but we're united by this diversity that brings us together. And that's exactly what ESN Urbino does every day. It brings international people together, people from all over the world, coming from different backgrounds, different stories. It brings them together to build a strong international community in this beautiful city that is Urbino. So this is all from my side. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a good conference where you can share your ideas and come together and actually find out what it means to be a European citizen in Italy and in Urbino today. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Vice President of ESN Italy. And now I give finally the word to my colleague Valerio. Enjoy your day.
I thank Gaia for her contribution, and thanks again for all the institutions that are here and have brought us their greetings to open the day. As Saira mentioned it at the beginning, this is the 6th edition of Europe in Italy, a conference that we, ESN Urbino, organize every year to celebrate Europe Day. This special occasion often falls on the 9th of May. This particular day was chosen in memory of when Robert Schuman, on the same day in 1950, presented the plan for economic cooperation, which was the first important step to lead the birth of the European Union. This institution unchanged the lives of our citizens, which is why we are keen to celebrate this anniversary each year by investigating the meanings of European citizenship and highlighting the opportunity it offers. To do so, this year we have 3 special guests who will bring us on a journey to discover the Union and the European citizenship. Bruna Corsi, Liaison Officer of ESN Italy for Youth and European Affairs, will hold the speech Bringing the Gap Between Erasmus and Reality, ESN Impact on Skills and EU Citizenship Values. Professor Edoardo Rossi, from the Department of Law of the University of Urbino, with the speech United in Diversity, Citizenship and Integration in the EU as Right-Based Legal Order. Professor James Newell, from the Department of Economics, Society and Politics, with the speech, The Importance of Being European, where we come from and where we are going. For those who are following us via YouTube streaming, you can ask as many questions as you want by posting them in the bar comment. And the end of each talk, there will be about 10 minutes in which our speakers will answer your question. So I think we can start with the first intervention. Bruna, please, the floor is yours.
So first thing, good morning, everyone. So when I was asked to speak about the impact of ESN on my life and our life outside of it, I actually thought, I wonder, what do we actually do all of this for? Our volunteering, our work, our commitment, where does it go? Where does it end? As volunteers, we think we're just part of an association, and sometimes that's not it. It doesn't stop there. ESN impact on our life is really unmeasurable, and I'm here today with you in our time together to share my feelings, thought, and also some facts about it. So as we all know, Erasmus is a unique experience that it's just a once in our lifetime experience, and it allows us and students that go, the thousands of students that go every year, to live and study in a different context, country, culture, opening their mind to new perspectives and enhancing their language skills and creating lifelong friendships. In Italy, ESN Italy, we have 53 sections. We just welcomed a new one in Padova in March, and 2,000 volunteers and more. And every year, we welcome 20,000 plus international students, mostly from Erasmus programs. But as we all know now, there are tons of other exchange programs. Still, amidst this incredible experience, this unique experience, and the lifelong friendship that are forged, we must pose ourselves three matters. How can we bridge the gap between mobility and life, work and studies once back home? Also, how can we ensure that students continue to develop their skills and knowledge and their sense of European identity and active citizenship? But finally, also, how can we harness mobility experiences to ignite a sense of solidarity and collaboration among students, not just here, not just in ESN, but in life, in every aspect of life? So, as Valerio introduced me, my name is Bruna Corsi, and I'm the liaison officer for Youth and European Affairs of ESN Italy. And I'm also involved at the local level of this network as I'm president of my section, which is ESN Milano Ulm. And outside of the volunteering sphere of my life, I'm graduating, hopefully, bachelor student in corporate communication and public relations. And on a side note, this is my very first time speaking at a conference, so thank you again, ESN Urbino, for the opportunity. And so let's go right into detail. So as a liaison officer, my tasks is to, I'm responsible for promoting contacts and keeping also relations with the institutional partners of ESN Italy, such as the permanent representation of the European Commission in Italy, but also any other stakeholder who advocates for the students' rights and European values and active citizenship. So during this presentation, we will talk about the volunteers as youth workers connected to the ESN and the European Euroskills of 2023, which was appointed by the European Commission for this year. Then we will go into detail for ESN and EU citizenship values, and finally a conclusion on bridging the gap. So we close the circle with my title. So, okay, youth work, as you can see here, is an educational process that supports young people's personal, social, and educational development, enabling them to understand their values, problems, and beliefs. It empowers them to form opinions, exert influence, and contribute to society. And the knowledge, skills, and objectives of the youth workers are crucial for the effectiveness of this process. So, something we should always consider is that youth workers are, of course, young individuals. And during youth, we start striving for self-sufficiency and independency, and we want to leave our homes and we want to be adults to grow, but at the same time we face so many challenges. And despite European government and governments in general policies that are going towards the direction of helping young Europeans, there are still various problems that require discussion and solutions. Of course, as ESN, we cannot provide a solution, but we can bring these topics up to the right partners and stakeholders to talk about them. So, in fact, ESN is working towards creating a more flexible environment, educational environment, and aims to support and develop student exchange, wanting to provide an intercultural experience for those who cannot access study abroad opportunities. And this is called, we call this internationalization at home. In fact, ESN is like a second Erasmus or a first Erasmus for those who didn't leave. So ESN has 6 causes, which are culture, education and youth, environmental sustainability, health and well-being, skills and employability, and social inclusion. So ESN is, of course, considered a youth organization as it targets young people, and to do so, we use these causes as a requisite for sections and national organizations to target young people with activities that are useful and not just fun, let me say this, that actually let them grow and enable them to discover more about their passions and their abilities and all that. So again, I mean, they're pretty self-explicative, so I'm gonna go on to the Youth Work Toolkit, which is a document that was issued by ESN International recently in September 2022, and it was developed after the Youth Work Lab that is a session that was held at the European Youth Center in Budapest, and it was organized by the Erasmus Student Network and the Council of Europe, so it was a really important partner. And this toolkit highlights the connection between ESN and activities and causes, and covers the following themes. So we have youth participation, because of course investing in youth means investing in society, in the future of the entire community. ESN advocates for youth to play an active role in society and be involved in decision making. So encouraging youth participation, youth active participation in civil society, such as voting activities, but also joining youth work organization is essential. Then we have inclusive society, because ESN believes in considering all members of society a common, like when taking community action. In fact, including marginalized individuals is crucial and holds great value when organizing activities. ESN also promotes a more inclusive Erasmus Plus program, advocating for example, more funds for individuals with fewer opportunities to be able to go abroad and have the same experience and the same possibilities as those with that don't have these issues. Also, ESN organizes social impact days, which are activities focused exactly on this. Then we have gender equality, because of course, it's pretty self-explicative, because ESN calls for gender equality across all areas of social life, and we fight against gender discrimination in schools, workplaces, society in general, universities. Recognition, because it's really important. ESN advocates for the recognition of youth work, so by volunteers as youth workers, by collaborating with higher education institutions, EU institutions, and international relations offices. And they also emphasize the recognizing international exchange like Erasmus as valuable work experience. Because during Erasmus, you don't just study, you don't just meet new people. It's a unique experience that also lets us gain valuable skills and insights that will be with us for the rest of our lives. Also, we have intercultural dialogue that came up because ESN promotes diversity, tolerance, and intercultural dialogue. And finally, health and well-being. It's the same as the cause, because ESN promotes not only physical health through its activities, but also mental health. which is a hot topic nowadays, and it's crucial since volunteering can be so exciting and beautiful that sometimes we don't really realize when we are passing the line, we're crossing the line of like the border between volunteering and entering our personal life. So mental health is really, really important. In ESN Italy, I would like to bring this example. So just context, Italy is one of the national organizations of ESN, which is the most structured. We have the most sections and also the highest number of volunteers, and I wouldn't say international students, but we are really structured. We have a lot of committees and volunteers involved in them that can go from community committee, communication committee, IT, tech, but also international relations. So volunteers get involved in activities that for commitment and responsibilities taken bring great value and great skills. So for this reason, these committed volunteers have worked on editorial work or translating or exactly international relations it's important that they're recognized as youth workers for the amount of commitment that they have in it. And it's also a recognition that brings the value and acknowledges the value and the positive change that we can have on society. So ESN and EU citizenship values. Okay, so the vision and mission and also values of ESN were approved at the annual general meeting that was held in Thessaloniki in 2019, and they demonstrate our European dedication to European integration. In fact, our vision is that by 2025, ESN will be the global network of the Erasmus generation, committed to improving international education and providing self-development opportunities to 2 million young people, fostering intercultural understanding and creative positive change in society. Also, ESN upholds a set of core values, which are those you can see, unity in diversity, diversity in unity, acknowledging our diverse backgrounds while working towards a common aim. Students helping students, because of course we are students and we help our peers when they come here, come abroad. And so we passionately commit ourselves to volunteering for the benefit of others. Also fun in friendship and respect. The international dimensions of life, because we want to embrace it, being open-minded and mobile and eager to discover, cooperate and learn and break down borders. Then the love for Europe as an area of peace and cultural exchange, appreciating and benefiting from the opportunities and the richness that we get as European citizens. Also openness with tolerance, understanding and accepting others while learning from them. And finally, cooperation and integration, adopting a holistic approach to internationality. All these values and vision converge into ESN mission, which is the enrichment of society through international students. So ESN Italy, again, as an example, promotes the value of ESN citizenship with several projects, and this is one of those that we are most proud of. This is ESN Italy Goes to Brussels, which was first organized in 2018. And this event offers selected participants around 30, 20, 30, depends on the edition. So the selected participants from the Italian sections get the chance to not only explore the European capital and its institutions, but also meeting with the important partners. So this picture is from last year. I actually was there as a participant, and it was really, really exciting to be there, and it was a beautiful event, and we got the chance to meet and discuss and dialogue with many important people that are actually involved in decision making and policy shaping. So, in fact, we went to the European Parliament, the European Council, the Parliamentarium, which is a museum, and then also the ESN International Office, which is in Brussels. And we met with the ESN International Board, Secretariat, the permanent representation of Italy in Brussels, and the Directorate General of Education for Education, Youth, Sport, and Culture. Another event that is anticipated in 2023 is Italian ESNers meet Rome institutions, which will provide Italian ESNers to go in Rome, exactly, with an opportunity to interact with political institutions and gain insights into their functioning and activities. But this project is still in the works, so we hope to launch it by the end of summer. So, Europe Day in Italy, other than Urbino, which again, this is like an annual conference and it's amazing, so really congratulations for this. Europe Day in Italy, which is going to be tomorrow, is really celebrated by sections. For example, ESN Chiedi Pescara inaugurated 2 benches with Erasmus students as a symbolic event. ESN Macerata will hold a conference tomorrow, European Citizenship, a Wealth of Opportunities. Also, ESN Pisa has organized a dialogue on 5 minutes to make us fall in love with your nation. Then we have also ESN Pavia with Erasmus Plus, how mobility can change your life, and finally ESN Trieste. So as you can see, ESN Italy is really dedicated to contributing actively to raise awareness among Italian and Erasmus students and generally the broader population, as these are open to anyone, about the values of European citizenships. Also, particularly in preparation of the upcoming European elections that will be in 2024, and we are actively working as ESN Italy to sensitize the network and students to exercise the right of voting through events organized by sections, but also through various meetings that we will organize throughout the year. So, finally, bridging the gap. Okay, so the impact that ESN has on our lives and lives of volunteers, I speak our because I'm really involved in ESN, volunteers and students participating in the Erasmus project is incredible. We believe that the power of this unique experience to shape individuals, opening their minds to new perspective, enhancing their language skills, and creating lifelong friendships. However, this doesn't stop there, as I was saying, because their journey continues when students return to their home countries, and it is crucial to bridge this gap between the transformative Erasmus experience and the reality of their lives and work back home, ensuring that they continue developing the skills, maintaining their sense of European identity, actively contributing to society, but most importantly, that there's something in them that will stay with them for the rest of their life. And what we want to do in ESN is to give them that something. So, for example, we're committed to providing guidance, support, and a sense of belonging, and also to helping them navigate the Erasmus journey. And this shows in every activity that we do, because we don't only just organize, gatherings or parties or cultural events. We really guide them through. If they come and ask us, how do I do this? How can you help me do this? Can you... it happened to me to drive an Erasmus student to Questura because he needed to pick up his permesso di soggiorno. So this is something that they will remember forever, and we're there for them. And when it feels like too much, for example, I just need to think about their gratitude and their happiness, and they are thanking me and thanking us. And it just, then, it motivates me to go again. So Italian sections provide precious opportunities for growth for international students and volunteers, and not only, as I was saying, by taking up positions of responsibilities as youth workers, but also through workshops and of various nature. For example, I'm from Milan, so the cooperation, we have 6 sections in Milan, so we have a really great cooperation and bond. And in cooperation with Yes Milano, which is an office from the municipality, with the municipality, we organize workshops on how to write a CV, how to find a job, how to face a job interview. Also, we are aware that the Erasmus program and having been on Erasmus abroad is a great addition to our CV. So we want them to embrace this and to put themselves out there with this amazing opportunity that they've made. So as we continue to advocate for youth involvement and recognition of youth work, we strive to ensure that the skills, knowledge, and European identity acquired during Erasmus are nurtured and maintained even after students return to their home countries. And by bridging the gap between Erasmus experience and reality, we contribute to a more inclusive, interconnected, and socially responsible society. Finally, I want to leave you with this. Together, let's continue to empower young individuals, enhance their skills and knowledge, and inspire them to actively contribute to their communities, fostering a Europe that embraces diversity, unity, and the values of active citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruna. Thank you very much for your incredible speech. And it was really interesting how you expose it. And it's true that the association like our one can make the difference in Europe. But what I like always to say is like, we don't want to make a change, but we want to be the change. This is the difference. So now, if the public has questions, please raise your hand and you can come here and you can have your question at the microphone. And also if like someone that is online have a question, just write it in the chat and then we will going to put to our beautiful
Ready.
Bruna. C'è qualche domanda in chat?
Vai.
Okay, so thanks very much, Bruna. There is no
Thank
question,
you
but
again.
just because it's not important, it's just because
I know.
it was very lovely what you said, that you replied to all the questions that we had in our mind. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruna. And now let's go with the next guest, that is Professor Rossi. Please, the floor is yours. Allora, spero che qua questo è più bravo. Bravo, facciamo così.
So thank you to all the members of the organizing committee of the Erasmus Students Network. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Actually, for two reasons, not only one, because I am both a lecturer and researcher of European Union and international law at the Department of Law, but I also am, as Professor Balduini knows, I'm also the coordinator, the delegate for the law faculty for the Erasmus program. So it's a great pleasure for me talking in this initiative, very interesting. And I also would like to congratulate to the Erasmus students of this association, because I perfectly agree with Professor Balduini and with Director Calcagnini. Erasmus is a very important experience for the students, and students that I see that came home after an Erasmus experience are always changed. Of course, in a positive way. They are shaped, they are more ready to live, more ready to work, more ready to study. So what you're doing with this initiative, but in general with all your activities, all the activities that Bruna mentioned, I think it's very important to be stressed. But without wasting more time, I would like to start with my presentation, if you agree. I think we decided for 30 minutes, more or less, but I'll try to finish earlier, because law is boring, in particular, but maybe we will have time also to discuss if you have questions, etc. So I'll try to finish as early as possible. So the title that I choose for this presentation is United in Diversity. Citizenship and integration in the European Union as a right-based legal order. A lot of notions, a lot of technical notions, but I would like to anticipate it. My idea is that law is very linked to other sciences, social sciences, economic sciences. So it's not political sciences, of course. So it's not only a question of law, but it is a more complex perspective. I know that here there are a couple of, maybe a few of students that that already followed, attended my courses in the Faculty of Law, in the Department of Law, but also in the Department of Political Sciences. So maybe for them these issues could be familiar or maybe boring. But I decided to start from the very first beginning, because there are not only law students and also from home. I think that are attending also students that are not very familiar with these legal notions. So from the beginning, what's the European Union? What is the European Union? It's not a simple. It's maybe a simple question, but not a simple answer. Because, of course, the answer is an international organization established through treaties, as you can see, like all the international organizations in the world. And as all the other international organizations to work, to function, they need temporary transfer of sovereignty by the states. And for this case, they are only with this transfer, the temporary transfers of sovereignty, international organization can work, can have the competencies to work, because the sovereignty is up to the states. But there is an important aim and an important reason because that justifies this renounce to the sovereignty, portion of sovereignty from the states, and it is the attempt to reach common objectives that states are not able to reach if they work alone. So this is the point. What is a treaty, an international treaty, an international agreement? It's the sources of international law, of course. They can be used for very different purposes, but the particular aspect that I would like to stress in this case is that with an international treaty, in particular the international treaties that are used to establish international organization, like happened with the European Union, but for all the other international organizations the same, is that states are binded to respect the contractual obligation that they decide to sign and to ratify in the content of the agreement. So states are not obliged to sign and ratify international agreements, but when they do it, they have to respect the obligation that they signed. And as I mentioned before, with the establishment of an international organization, European Union in particular, states spontaneously, without being forced, renounce to exercise portions of national sovereignty. And this is justified by the attempt to reach the greater common objectives that are not attainable alone for the states, as I already said. In the case of the European Union, we have to stress a particular aspect, and is that there are huge transfers of sovereignty at the base as a foundation of the European Union. In particular, just reading the Article 1 of the Treaty of the European Union, it's one of the two treaties at the base of the European Union, you can easily understand how is important the transfer of sovereignty and how is huge the transfer of sovereignty the states decided to provide to the European Union. And in particular, just read it, by this treaty the high contracting parties, this means the states, of course, establish among themselves a European Union, this international organization called the Union, on which the member states confer competencies to attain objectives that they have in common. This means that without transfer of sovereignty, without specific decisions from the states, the European Union, but in general, international organizations have no competencies to work. But, as I told you, there are a justification for that. There are a reason for that. This is a very, very important reason. The reach of common values, the reach of common objectives through common values. In particular, Article 2 of the Treaty of the European Union provides that the Union is founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and the respect for human rights. And these values that are common to the member states, so a state that doesn't share this value cannot be considered a member state, never can become a member state. These values are common to the member state in a society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. These are the common values of the European Union, of the member states of the European Union, and only the states that share these common values can be member of this important international organization. These values are important because they are the coordinates to be followed to reach the objectives. And Article 3 of the Treaty of the European Union is very clear to identify the aims and the objectives of the European Union. Promote peace, promote the values that we mentioned, the well-being of its peoples. So very wide objectives. There are no more the specific competence to the economics, to the commerce that inspired at the beginning of the process of the European integration, the establishment of the European Union, because now the objectives of the European Union are very wide. And I would like also to anticipate another thing. There are no international organization in the world similar to the European Union. No other international organization have the same extent of competencies that the member states of the European Union decided to provide to this European organization. And for this, the European Union has also a great responsibility, in particular ensuring the freedom, the security, the justice of the citizens, of the European citizens, the free movement of persons, and this is strongly linked to the Erasmus program, for example. Ensured in conjunction with appropriate measures with respect to external border control, asylum, immigration, and prevention of combating crime. So as you can see, there are very, very wide objectives at the base of the European Union. The states decided to give a lot of competencies to the European Union because the aims and the purposes that the European Union must follow are huge. Very quickly, this slide full of text because it's only a list. But in Article 3, the purposes of the objectives of the European Union are mentioned, and as you can see, are a lot. Establishment of an internal market, the sustainable development. Actually, this is a new formulation of this article after the Treaty of Lisbon entered into force in 2009. But now in the treaties, among the objectives of the European Union, we also have the sustainable development, the social market economy, a very competitive social market economy, the full employment, the environment, the scientific and technological advance, the protection, equality between women and men, solidarity between generations, the rights of the child, economic and social and territorial cohesion, solidarity among member states, cultural and linguistic diversity, the protection of Europe's cultural heritage, and also economic and monetary union. So the competencies of the European Union are huge, because huge are the purposes of this organization. And this is one of the reasons because, as I anticipated, the European Union is an international organization like the United Nations, like the Council of Europe, like other important international organizations, but there are no other international organization that has the same competencies of the European Union. So we can call the European Union, it is not a federation of states, it is an international organization, but it's a sui generis international organization. It's a unique international organization. And the main reason is that the largest transfer of sovereignty ever seen is at the base of the functioning of the European Union. There are also other reasons that can represent a difference between the European Union and the other international organizations. Of course, a strong system of institutions at the base of the functioning of the European Union, the value and the force of the effectiveness of the sources of law is very strong also in the internal legal system of the member states, but the main aspect that I would like to stress is competence. The European integration in the last decades, we can say, as we can see from this slide, has been a process very long, but this is only a list of, it's not a complete list of the steps of the European integration process, but the most important step I think that I have been included in this slide. During this period, of course, a lot of changes, a lot of modification of the European Union, of this international organization we had, but one of the most important aspects is that the number of competencies of the European Union increased very gradually, constantly, but gradually. This means at the beginning of the process of European integration, for example, in 1951, with the Treaty of Paris and the establishment of the European Community of Coal and Steel, the competence of the European Union were a few, very specific, very sectorial, in only specific aspect of specific sectors. And then during the years, a larger dimension of the European Union pop up, in particular the treaties of Rome, so the extension to all the economic dimensions. And then one of the most important step of this process, the Treaty of Maastricht. I will mention it again because this is, in my opinion, the date, the event that really changed the dimension of the European Union. Because we can talk about European citizenship only because of the Treaty of Maastricht. Because this concept, this notion, has been introduced in the system of law of the European Union with the Treaty of Maastricht. But it is quite an evidence of the changing of perspective of the European Union, because from a purely economic and commercial international organization, introducing a notion as the European citizenship, we have a completely change of perspective. We have no more an international organization fully focused to the economics, and now we have an international organization that also have competencies in the social life, fundamental rights of individuals, and all the other aspects that constitutes the complex system of human life relationships. Why united in diversity? Because it is true, the European Union, in my opinion, is a virtuous model, because on the one hand, there are strong limits to sovereignty the states accepted to provide to the European Union, and these are arising from the membership to the international community, of course. But on the other hand, there is also the respect for national particularities, because the European Union is obliged to respect the national identities. This means that, of course, there is the principle of equality. Discrimination are forbidden, but the principle of equality doesn't mean that different situations must be considered and treated in the same way. Different situations should be treated in different way, and the same situation could be treated in the same way. So not considering the national identities, not considering the national characteristics, the national features of each population, of each state, is a mistake. And this is why the European Union is a virtuous model, because it tries always to find a balance between the importance of the objectives that we saw and the respect of national identities. There have been constant increasing of the European Union, a constant increase of the competencies of the European Union, as I told you, from market to now protection of fundamental rights, social aspect, etc. But the process of the European integration is still incomplete. I decided to use these pictures of the European Parliament, of the building of the European Parliament, because I don't know if it is a well-known aspect, but there is a reason why this building has this shape. It is not because they finished the money to complete the building in the middle during the operations, but it is a specific meaning. This building seems incomplete, as you see, but it is like that because incomplete is the process of the European integration. So it is quite, in my opinion, is quite significant the fact that the main institution of the European Union decided to use this building as to still use this building with a specific idea, specific criteria. How much time do I have? Because I forgot to start. Okay, it's fine. Thank you. This is a confirmation of the principle of attribution that governs the exercise of the European Union competencies. But there is an expression that I would like to underline in this specific case, in particular in paragraph 2. It is true, the European Union has competencies conferred by the states, but the Union shall respect the equality of the member states before the treaties, as well as their national identities, inherent in their fundamental structure. This is why we can say united in diversity. The European Union should consider the national identities. This is, in my opinion, a way to underline that the European Union is aware that we are not the same. We have different population, different states. Each state has a national identity, has a national structure, a system of tradition, culture, etc. And the concept of European citizenship is not a way to delete all the national differences that we have. It's a way to put them together and let them work. So the European Union shall respect the essential state functions in particular. I think we can skip this one. I'm almost at the end, so my promise will be respected to finish early. I stress the importance of the European citizens, and I would like to do it again with the Treaty of Maastricht, because it is very important of the enlargement of the European Union competencies. But few seconds about the European citizenship. The notion from the European citizenship are important. My perspective is, again, the legal perspective of a researcher of international law, European Union law. So, of course, I am aware that citizenship is not only a legal link. There are of course, social aspects that must be considered, cultural, tradition, religion, ethics, etc. But under the legal perspective, the citizenship in general, not the European one, the citizenship could be defined as a link between the members of the same population that enable these members, these citizens, to the enjoyment of rights and also to respect the duties that are afforded by the state. So citizenship is a notion, under the legal perspective again, that links population and a specific state. So the problem is that the European Union is not a state. But in any case, the volunteer of the member states and also of the institution of the European Union is to use this notion, very strong political meaning, not only legal meaning, because saying that citizenship is also European citizenship, it is linked to the national citizenship, but is European citizenship, means the idea of the general purposes of the European Union. To find something in common and to respect what we have in common in the European dimension with all the populations, all the all the member states of the European Union. Indeed, and this is my last slide, this is the last slide of my presentation. Indeed, even if the European Union is not a state, and to be honest, we cannot know if never the European Union will become a federal state, as someone in scholars try to attempt again, to support again. But even if the European Union is not a state, European Union is a societas. And I would like to underline, to recall this Latin expression, in my opinion, that is clarifying the concept, and it's very useful to understand deeply the notion of European citizenship. Ubi societas, ibi ius, where the society, a social union of people, there's the ius, there's the law. And we can also say on the other end, in the different sense, but the same, the different sense, but the same, ubi ius, ibi societas. There's no use, there's no law without a societas, without a society, and there's not a society without a law. This is why, coming back again to the title of my presentation, this is why the European Union, one of the tools that the European Union used to become a virtuous model and to create a society that is working is the law, is the right-based legal order in the European Union. So the European Union citizenship are a societas. There's the European Union law that is the instrument, the tool to implement this citizenship, enabling, giving the possibility to enjoy rights and also giving duties to all the member states. And this is why, we have equal rights and equal duties in the respect of the national identities. And this is why, concluding with the final message, this is why Erasmus program, for example, is an instrument with huge power in this sense. Because it is a program that gives the possibility to improve the sense of belonging to the European Union, that give the possibility to feel with a real meaning the notion of European Union citizenship, showing in concrete what does it mean to be European citizens, what does it mean to be European. So thank you.
So thank you, Professor Rossi, for your amazing speech. And so now if the public have a question, please raise your hand. Yep.
I actually have thousands of questions after this speech. Thank you so much. And I would like just to ask, I mean, how important is still the economic network that links all the countries in Europe? We all know that ESN, above all, I mean, the economic part is less relevant in our association because most of our job, of our tasks are made because we really believe in what you said, in the European unity and cohesion. But my question is, so how relevant is the economic aspect for the European Union nowadays? Would we still feel part of a European community if it wasn't for the economic networks that link the countries today? And my second question is, what are the main threats for the European Union cohesion today? We are talking, what? The main threats, dangers for the European Union unity. Because on one side, of course, we have these wonderful values that we all share, but on the other, there is the problem of Brexit. Countries are talking about leaving this wonderful community that we are talking about. So there's actually something wrong that we are maybe not underlying so well, where in what the European Union is wrong in this. Thank you.
Do you have to reply right now, or are collecting more questions? Do you prefer collecting more questions? To reply to this one, okay. So thank you for the questions. Very, very interesting, but very difficult to answer. About the economic aspect, it's true that the economic aspect is still a very important issue for the European policies. Also considering under a purely statistic point of view, and considering the numbers of sources of law that are affecting the European Union, the relation to the European economic policies is still one of the most treated, one of the most important kind of policies, sector of policies that the European Union is implementing, because the economics is still the basis of for all the rest, for all the other things that the European Union, the objectives that the European Union is following, is trying to attain. So about the economic dimension, the fact that the European Union has more competencies in all different, a lot of different social aspects, social ones first, but also political, etc., doesn't mean that there is no attention for the economic aspect in the European Union policies. It's important to underline that the European Union is no more only economy, but it is still economy, because the link with the well-being of people cannot be pursued without a strong economic union, for example. So economy, law, society are aspects that goes together still today. And considering in the second question, the main dangers and the main threat for the European Union in this period, in my opinion, there are two big dangers that the European Union is, that are jeopardizing the European Union, the functioning of the European Union. The first, you mentioned it, and I think that also Professor Newell can say something about that later, is that there is the risk of that cases like Brexit are still close to us. So there is the Brexit is very, very an example of how the political treatment of particular situations at a social level can become something unexpected, and very, very difficult to understand. So the risk of losing the sense of the European integration is still present, but not only in a lot of member states. In Italy, of course, in Spain, of course, in Poland, the situation in the Czech Republic is similar. So we have this is of course a big risk. The losing of the sense of the European integration, the meaning and the direction that is following the European Union. So this is, of course, one of the main dangers of the European Union. And we have to work on that, of course. Not only under the economic point of view, not only on the economic point of view, but also considering what is important to strengthen the sense of being European. And also the positive aspect that being European Union brings together, and that we often neglect. A lot of people usually, it happens that forgot how important all the benefits that we receive from the European Union, from being members of the European Union. The second danger, in my opinion, the second threat are the problems in the relationship with the third states and with the third international organization, the other international organization. One of the most critical sector of policies of the European Union is the sector of the relationship with third states, the foreign relationships of the European Union. Because European Union is not as a global actor, has a very important role in all the international community, is a point of reference of the voices of the European Union member states. It is well considered abroad in all the international diplomatic and not only situations. But being a global actor means also have a global responsibility. So the European Union cannot forget to take decisions, that has to take decisions, very important, in the approach in the cases considering the foreign affairs, global foreign affairs. And I think it is very important to take the right position and to take for the European Union the right decisions in this kind of situations. The problem is that the European Union is not unique, but as we say, is an international organization, but inside this international organization, we have 27 member states with different positions. So it could be a problem for the European Union, it could become a danger, not to find a social cohesion and political cohesion to approach to international emergencies in a strong and common way. This is, in my opinion, one of the risks for the European Union that will attend it for the future. I think I talked enough, and I can give the floor.
So thank you again, Professor Rossi.
Thank you again.
Speech. And let's go. And now let's go to the next guest, Professor Newell. Please, the floor is yours.
So can I send it forward using this keyboard here? Lovely, okay. Right, well, thank you very much indeed for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and I'd like to thank the organising committee for doing the honour of inviting me. I feel extremely flattered. So what I want to talk about is the importance of being European, how we got here and where we're going, And in order to do that, I'd like to address 3 questions. First of all, why is European integration important? Secondly, why are European identities important for achieving the goal of greater European integration? And thirdly, under what conditions will these European identities be increasingly adopted and consolidated? So, if we start with the first question then, why is European integration important? In order to address this question, we have to have an understanding, I think, of what we mean by European integration. So, the term European integration usually refers to the process whereby member states have increasingly transferred their sovereignty to the supranational European institutions. Hence, there has been increasing uniformity in the rules and regulations governing an increasingly wide range of economic and social activities within the member states. And this is because in transferring their sovereignty, in establishing the European institutions and European law, the treaties themselves have given rise, with respect to the member states' legal systems, to a superior legal order, whereby European law is directly applicable in the member states and cannot be overridden by domestic law, a principle that was established by a famous court judgment that took place of the European Court in 1963 or 1964, I can't remember which, what it was, but a famous case called Costa versus Enel. Now, there are 4 reasons, I think, why integration in that sense is important. And the first is that it's made possible the development of the single market and economic and monetary integration. So what do I mean by a single market? Well, a single market refers to the process of economic integration, which traditionally has taken place, and certainly in the case of the European Union, over a series of 4 stages. So the first stage was the setting up of a free trade area, which refers to the process whereby member states eliminate tariffs on the exchange of goods between themselves. The second stage is when the free trade area gives rise to a customs union, which refers to a situation in which the members of the free trade area establish a common external tariff with respect to third member states. And one of the advantages of this is that if states form a customs union and negotiate free trade deals with other member states, usually they can get much better deals, something that was lost on the supporters of a leave vote in the 2016 Brexit referendum. The third stage of European integration is when a customs union gives rise to a single market, which refers to a situation in which states have not only eliminated tariff barriers between themselves, but they've also eliminated a large number of non-tariff barriers, which also make trade difficult between states. Yes, I'm referring to things like different rules on public procurement, different rules regarding safety standards, all these kinds of things which make trade much more difficult. So in the case of the European Union, the Single European Act of 1986 established the deadline of 1992 as the deadline whereby all, or as many as possible, of these non-trade tariff barriers would be eliminated. Then we come on to an economic and monetary union, which arises from the realization that even if you eliminate tariffs and you eliminate all kinds of non-tariff barriers between states, there remains an obstacle to trade constituted by the fact that states have different currencies. Currencies fluctuate sometimes wildly and unpredictably between member states, and these constitute a disincentive on businesses to engage in trade with other member states. Why is this? Well, I'd like you to imagine, let's imagine you are a producer of nails. Don't ask me why I say nails, it's the first thing that came to mind. But let's imagine you produce nails. and it costs you 2,000 lire to produce these nails, and you sell them in the German market. Now let us imagine that the exchange rate of the lira to the Deutschmark is 1,000 lire to 1 Deutschmark. So, in order to be able to sell these nails in the German market and meet your costs, you are going to have to sell your nails at a minimum of 2 Deutschmarks for a packet of nails. Now let us imagine that all of a sudden the value of the lira increases and it only takes 500 Deutschmarks for 1 lira. Okay, so if you continue to sell your nails at 2 Deutschmarks, then when you bring your Deutschmarks back and you try to change them into lira, you're only going to get 1 lira for each packet of nails. You're not going to be able to cover your costs. On the other hand, if you increase the price at which you sell your nails in Germany to 4 Deutschmarks per packet of nails, then you may not be able to find any buyers for them. So either way, you've got a major problem here. Okay? So currency fluctuations are very problematic for business. And so what the Maastricht Treaty did was it put in place all the provisions which made possible for states to give up their single currencies, to adopt the euro, which took place in 1999, with the introduction of notes and coins coming into circulation in 2002. Now, you might be wondering at that point, so what? Who cares about trade? Why is its expansion a good thing? Don't we have too much trade? After all, many people suggest that it's our relentless pursuit of extra trade and extra wealth and so on that has brought about climate change with all the problems that we know about in that direction. I'll come back to talk about climate change in just a minute, but for a moment, I want to suggest to you why increased trade in states may be an advantage. Now, the reason for this was highlighted by an economist by the name of David Ricardo over 200 years ago in 1817 when he developed his theory of comparative advantage. What does this theory say? Well, it states that even if a country is more efficient at producing all imaginable goods than another country, it will still pay both countries to concentrate on producing the goods in which their relative advantage is greatest, and to engage in free trade with each other rather than attempting to produce everything themselves and refusing to engage in trade. Now, to illustrate this theory, Ricardo asks us to imagine that the world economy consists of 2 countries, England and Portugal. Now, each of these countries produces 2 commodities, wine and cloth. Now, in this imaginary world economy, what you can see is that Portugal is more efficient than England in producing both commodities. Why? Well, if we take cloth, for instance, Portugal has to spend only 90 hours of work in order to produce 1 unit of cloth, whereas England has to spend 100 hours. Likewise, in the case of wine, to produce 1 unit of wine, Portugal can spend just 80 hours of labour, whereas it takes England 120 hours. But what you can also see is that, relatively speaking, England is more efficient in producing cloth than wine, and Portugal is more efficient in producing wine than cloth. Why? Well, because Portugal can produce 1 unit of wine with only 80 hours, whereas it takes them 90 hours to produce 1 unit of cloth. Vice versa, with England, it takes England only 100 hours to produce 1 unit of cloth, whereas it takes 120 hours to produce 1 unit of wine. So what happens is that if both countries spend their available labour sources producing both, then what do we get? Well, we get a situation like the one you can see in the table on the right left-hand side there. Okay, they both spend their labour resources to produce wine and cloth, and so we get a total output of 2 units of cloth and 2 units of wine. So what Ricardo is suggesting is that if England gives up producing wine altogether and just produces cloth, then it can spend the 220 hours of labour that it has available just to produce cloth, and we get a total output of 2.2 units of cloth. If, on the other hand, Portugal gives up producing wine, it can produce 2.125 units of wine rather than the 2 units that we get before specialisation. So what we see is that both countries are better off. Everybody is better off if they concentrate on producing what they have the greatest relative advantage in, and if they engage in free trade with each other. So a third reason why European integration is important is because it facilitates trade and therefore prosperity. Why is prosperity important? Well, it really goes to the heart of the reason why European integration was initiated in the first place in the 1950s, because the founders of the European integration project were aware that it was because of competition between states in the 1920s and 1930s, their refusal to engage in free trade, their attempts to impose competitive devaluations of their currencies against each other, that this had been a major contribution to the rise of Nazism and fascism in the 1930s. Secondly, we know that prosperity helps to contribute to the strengthening of democracy. Yeah? It's been no accident, I think, that since the financial crisis of 2008 and the period of austerity, that period has coincided with the rise of far-right populist parties, some of whose democratic credentials are rather doubtful, not all of them by any means, but certainly, they cannot be said to strengthen democracy to the extent that they are very nationalistic parties who try to capitalize on people's fears and insecurities arising from austerity to find convenient scapegoats in pointing to migrants and so on as the cause of their problems. Because, of course, when people feel fearful, they don't look for parties that will provide openness and freedom, but rather they look to strong leaders who will solve their problems, even if that means doing so in a non-democratic way. Fourth reason why European integration is important is because the problems facing European citizens are too large for individual states to deal with on their own. We know this to be true in the case of climate change. COVID taught us that nobody could be safe unless we were all safe. Economic regulation is a second area that has become significant insofar as it has become increasingly clear that if we want to be able to, as it were, reinforce our abilities to cope with a globalized economy, a world in which multinational corporations can move capital at will from one state to another in order to have power to deal with these large organizations, we have to develop political parties, political structures, organizations and so forth that extend beyond nation states. Mass migration is another example of the way in which the lack of integration has made the problem very difficult to deal with. People sometimes look at the problems of mass migration and complain about the supposed unwillingness of Europe to address the problem effectively. That, I think, is mistaken in my view. It's not Europe that is unwilling to address the problem, but it is precisely because European integration has not gone far enough, because the individual states retain too much power, that so far we've not seen the emergence of a European-wide approach to the issue, enabling us to develop responses to it that are both humane and promote integration of people coming from beyond our frontiers. Okay, so that's the first question. Second question, why are European identities important for achieving greater European integration? Perhaps you can tell me how much time I've got. Yes, 5 minutes. Okay. Right. Well, if we want to ask this question then, we need first of all to understand what we mean by European identity. European identity means, at least as far as I'm concerned anyway, the sense on the part of individuals that besides being Italian, British and so on, they are also European. European identity refers to citizenship. What is a citizen? Well, a citizen is somebody who has both rights and obligations towards the political community, as Professor Rossi pointed out earlier on. Why is a sense of citizenship important? A sense of citizenship is important because to the extent that being a citizen involves having a long series of rights and obligations, it places each individual in a relationship with equality with his or her fellow citizens. That leads to a creation of the feeling of a certain, at least a minimum degree of solidarity between citizens, which therefore enables citizens to feel that they share, as equal citizens, that they share ownership of the political institutions that govern them. That in turn helps to legitimize the institutions themselves. I think this was no better put than by a political scientist who has studied European integration quite extensively, Luc van Middelaar, a Dutch political scientist. He says, every day any national government, in Poland say, takes decisions that can be contested to various degrees by opposition parties, be disliked by voters, even trigger protests or strikes. As a general rule, however, even the protesters accept the legitimacy of the Polish government itself. They might want the Polish Prime Minister to leave office tomorrow, but they would still consider him our infuriating Prime Minister and speak of our disappointing Parliament and our bad laws. Political identity trumps the outcome of the political process. So, under what conditions, then, will European identities be adopted and consolidated? I think there are 4 necessary conditions. One is the creation of a European public sphere. The second is European democratization. The third is the role of political parties. And the fourth is the role of us as European citizens. So I just want to conclude by looking at each of these 4 very briefly in turn. So the first requirement, I think, is the creation of a European public sphere. What do we mean by a public sphere? Well, a public sphere is very, very difficult to define, but essentially a public sphere refers to all those institutions, rules and groups through which individual citizens are able to interact with each other and with the authorities for political purposes. Why is a public sphere important to a sense of European citizenship? Well, it's important to a sense of European citizenship because it's through his or her involvement in the public sphere that the European citizen asserts the rights and obligations which define citizenship in the first place. The problem is that the European public sphere is very weakly developed. We know this because 2 fundamental features or components of the public sphere, media systems and party systems, are both very, very nationally focused, yes? Think of European Parliament elections when they take place. What happens? Well, what happens is that the European Parliament elections are run essentially as 27 national elections, yes? The political parties focus on national issues. The national media systems give very, very little attention to European Parliament elections, certainly as compared to national legislative elections. And citizens are very, for the most part, very unaware of what European issues are being discussed. So we need to develop a European public sphere. That then raises or leads me on to the second development that I think is important in helping us to consolidate European identities, which is European democratization. I haven't got time to go into all those now, but these are 4 proposals which have been widely discussed in Europe in recent years. 4 very practical proposals aimed at increasing the extent of European democratization, which I think need to be pursued. Thirdly, I said, important in developing European identities was the role of European political parties. Now, I've put this particular infamous poster that appeared during the 2016 Brexit referendum there for a purpose, because it illustrates the role of political parties very, very well. Why are political parties important in the development of European identities? Well, think about how it is that political parties campaign. How do they campaign? Well, they campaign by developing narratives. What is a narrative? Well, a narrative is a story that tells us who we are, where we've come from, where we are now, where we are going. So political narratives create political identities, and that means that political parties have a pedagogical role. They give us our political identities. Now, the Italian political parties have been very, very good at this. If you go and have a look at any government building, what are the 2 things that you see? You see the Italian flag and you see the European flag. That never happened in the United Kingdom. The political parties never made any effort to enable citizens to perceive themselves as, yes, British, but also European. And so what happened was that the Brexiteers were able to come along and able to say to citizens that these 2 things were not both and, but either or. You could either be British or European. You couldn't be both. That, I think, is a big mistake. So political parties have a very important role. Finally, and this is the last slide, you'll be pleased to know, the role of us as European citizens. I think we as European citizens can do a great deal to contribute to the development of European identities. How? First of all, by involvement in the Erasmus programme. Secondly, by means of learning a foreign language, because one of the reasons why a European public sphere is so weakly developed is because we have linguistic difficulties to overcome. The third one is to become involved in European transnational parties or pressure groups like the ones I've showed here. There are many that you become involved in. And the fourth is simply to make sure that we vote in European Parliament elections, that we're informed about European politics, and that we're prepared to defend the great benefits that the EU has given us. I don't think we should be starry-eyed about the EU. It has its defects, certainly. It could do much more in the way of becoming much more democratic in terms of the way it carries on its business. But neither should that, I think, blind us to the considerable benefits that it's brought us in the area of workers' rights, protection of the environment, the protection of civil liberties, and many others besides. So whether it continues to do so is going to depend on us. Thanks very much.
Just 5 minutes. So thanks a lot for your delighting speech. And now if someone has a question, please. Okay, you can come here and just ask question to him like Riccardo did.
As Professor Rossi talked about the preservation of the national identity, and as we have seen nowadays, we saw some countries that feel that their national identity and sovereignty are being threatened by the European Union, like it was the case with the United Kingdom with the Brexit, but also from, I think that we can see from the rise of some anti-European parties that are rising in some major countries. My questions are to you, Professor Newell. Will we ever truly identify ourselves as Europeans ahead of Italians or the French or Germans in the future? And if yes, How should the European Union promote this on a practical level to prevent the disintegration of the European Union? And what could we people who share this common dream of a true European citizenship do to make this reality more likely to happen?
Sorry, I just have to write these down because I'm getting old and my memory is a sieve. I won't remember.
Before you talk about the creation of a European public sphere,
yeah.
And like I was curious about also the other practical way the European Union was already speaking about to promote.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then what we as people could do, like for
Yeah.
example, also we are from ESN, but also people that just believe in the European Union.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Will we ever identify ourselves as European? Well, again, like the questions that were addressed to Professor Rossi, I have to say that those are very, very good questions, very, very difficult to answer. Will we identify ourselves as European? I don't know, is the answer. I hope we will. I think that with Brexit, for example, one of the great slogans was "Take back control," which I think it was very unfortunate because it fed into a whole sort of sense. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now, but I'm thinking about the reasons for Brexit, and I think it had to do at a very, very deep level with, psychologically speaking, with a feeling on the part of British political elites, yes, both of superiority, but also a great fear concerning inferiority, yes. Now, there is only one emotion that can combine a feeling of superiority, but a fear of inferiority. And what is that emotion? That is self-pity, yeah? So Brexit was very much a manifestation of self-pity. It was because the British political elites managed to convince themselves that Europe was somehow some what's the word I'm looking for, oppressive kind of entity that was threatening their independence and so on, and therefore feeding into this feeling of self-pity that Brexit was able to make ground in Europe. I think there is a lot we can do to develop European identities, and a lot that the European institutions themselves can do. I remember when I was a child growing up in the 1950s and the 1960s, that there was a very, very popular television program which I loved called Giochi senza frontiere, Jeux sans frontières, which was enormously popular, and it was watched by millions and millions of people. Now, this was a program that was first thought of by Charles de Gaulle, who thought that it would be a good way of helping to promote rapprochement between France and Germany at the end of the Second World War. And it was his invention. And I do remember when I watched this program that there was a very real sense in which I felt European watching it, yes? So I think there is certainly a lot we can do, and that European identities are therefore possible, if not probable. I think, as I say, I don't know if we'll ever identify ourselves truly as European. I hope that we will. And I think also that to the extent that we are more willing to take steps to achieve that, the more likely it will become. The problem is, if we think, well, you know, there is no European public sphere, it's very, very weakly developed, we won't have European identities, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah? So I think we have to, you know, we have to act as if it were possible, okay? As for the second question, what do we need to do? As I say, I think there are, unfortunately, I haven't got time to, I would have to re-give my whole intervention, but, you know, the steps in the direction of greater European democratization that we could take, yeah? So, for example, giving the European Parliament the power of legislative initiative, strengthening the Spitzenkandidaten system, which is the system whereby in advance of European Parliament elections, the main parties nominate people as head of the European Commission with a view to putting pressure on the European Council when it decides who to nominate, that they nominate the person with the whose party has received the greatest number of votes. Yeah, if we do that, then we would hopefully manage to increase the level of turnout at European Parliament elections. If we had transnational lists, yeah, at the moment parties present candidates within colleges that exist only within member states, but if we had transnational lists whereby colleges extended beyond or extended across frontiers, then parties would be obliged to campaign on genuine European issues, rather than on purely national issues as they do at the moment. And that too, I think, would contribute very strongly to the emergence of European identity. So I think there's a lot we can do. What we need to do as individuals is to get involved in the organizations that are campaigning precisely for greater European integration and European democratization. And we need to be good European citizens in terms of voting in European elections and informing ourselves, because I mentioned that citizenship involves both rights and obligations, and the three fundamental obligations involved in citizenship are A, to be law-abiding, B, to pay your taxes honestly, and C, to contribute to collective decision-making by participating in elections and being well-informed. Sorry, I've gone on too long.
Thanks a lot for your questions, and also you have questions, right? Okay, just coming. Thanks for the replying, and I don't know, it's very beautiful listening it to you. So Riccardo, now you go.
So thank you for your speech. Just a question that came up in my mind just now. It's like, how much do you agree with the sentence, are we still the first of the class, and do we have to be the first of the class and lead the others? Is it still like that, or not anymore? Do we have to look at ourselves and more to the others? And it's just
okay. Can I ask you what you mean by first of the class? I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's like from an anthropological maybe point of view. It's like always we have to lead the others, and we have to be the example of for the others.
Okay.
Is it still like that, or this thing changed over the time, and in the future we change even more?
Okay, I think I understand. But tell me if I'm wrong. You mean, is it appropriate for us as European citizens to think of ourselves as leaders in some way with respect to the rest of the world? Is that the idea?
Sort of thinking like from a colonization.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Okay. I think I would say I would say, first of all, there is a danger involved in European citizenship, which is seen in some political parties. There aren't many of them, and they're very small, but they do exist, I think, which are both very, what's the word I'm looking for, they engage in a process of othering, yeah, which I guess is an anthropological term as well. So, for instance, they are very Islamophobic, for instance, but they are also very much in favor of European integration. Okay. Usually we associate Islamophobia and hostility to migrants and that sort of thing with right-wing populist parties at the national level. Yeah. But there are European parties of that kind because they see Europe as the cradle of a Christian culture which is opposed to Islam and so on and so forth. So there is a danger with with discourses around European citizenship that we simply transfer a sense of national belonging and hostility to people outside to the European level. Okay, so that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that I think as Europeans we should, and the British in particular in this respect, should recognize our colonial past, which in my opinion was built upon theories of racial superiority. And until we recognize our colonial past, and we are willing to make amends for it, then I think it will be very, very difficult to eliminate racism in our societies. And the third thing, I think, is that I find it difficult to reconcile the liberal democratic principles of equality and equal rights with restrictive migration policies. Citizenship rights, yes, the rights involved in citizenship are based on presumptions that the people who have those rights are all equal. Yeah? But if we limit those rights on the basis of citizenship, and we do not extend those rights to people generally beyond frontiers, then in what sense are we still equal? We're not. And I think that we become significantly impoverished as human beings when we act on assumptions of hostility and othering of that kind. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question anyway.
Thank you for all your questions, and thank you again to Professor Newell for his wonderful speech. We have now come to the end of the day, but before we leave, we would like to present to you another small initiative of our association on the occasion of the Europe Day. In fact, we have asked for all collaboration of the entire Urbino student community and collected photographs of Urbino students who have spent a period of mobility aboard and of all those who from aboard have come to Urbino to do the Erasmus. Or to create a single photographic exhibition containing the stories and experience of those who, through the participation of the Erasmus Plus program, have had the pleasure of experiencing the beauty of being European citizens. This exhibition, less the conference, is held every year, and it is great to see how it grows every year, filling up more and more with the memories and experience of mobile students. You can see the exhibition on your left of the hall. I would like to thank everyone who attended the day and followed us, and thus who made it possible. And now I will leave the floor to my colleague Saira for some final greetings.
Wow, it was very beautiful to see how many people was interested. So I'm very emotional a bit, like usually. Okay. So we have came to the end of this day, and I would also like to thank all the speakers, Bruna, Professor Rossi, Professor Newell. And also, I would like to thank all the institutions who opened the conference, Donatello Trisolino, the university webmaster who works behind the scenes and allowed the conference to be streamed. Thanks to you participants for coming here today and who is online, so thank you very much, it means a lot. Now, I would like also to thank Chiara Fassoli, who is the previous president, because has been the most involved from the beginning to the implementation of Europe in Italy. Thank you for what you have done and you continue to do for ESN Urbino, wherever you are now around the world. I'm really sorry that you're not here among us to enjoy this day that I know you care so much about. Thank you for the commitment and passion you have put and continue to put into the things you do. And again, thanks a lot. Last but not least, to my dear section. To all those who are in front of us today, to the one that helped and support us, to all those who have lent a hand in making this event happen. I want to say thank you for the commitment you put into the things you do, the passion and the love you devote to your actions. We know that sometimes things can get hard and tough. But with you next to me, I am not afraid anymore. To you who have become my family, thank you for the trust and support you give me every day. I love you all pretty much. Thanks a lot. So now we are very happy that finally, like it's lunchtime, we are really also glad to give the news that we are preparing a buffet. And if we have the pleasure to lead you to this wonderful occasion, because I think we are all tired. So thanks again, and you are very precious. Thank you.